read-alouds, of course, are a fantastic addition to our homeschool days. But what are some great ones? Well, today I'm going to share with you 10 books that would make great read-alouds for studying the 20th century. If you are like me and don't really enjoy reading aloud, I hate to sometimes admit it, among homeschool moms, kind of get a recoiled look of horror, but I don't really enjoy it. But I really do enjoy sharing books with my kids. So we do a lot of audiobooks. And if you haven't really used audiobooks before, I've got a blog post that gives some tips and tricks and ways we use it, how we get them for free, etc. So I will link that down below. I'm going to give some first that are U.S. history based, and then other ones that are international books or set outside the U.S. First one, Warhorse. This was one of the first books we actually did when we moved to North Carolina, so it's got fond memories for that. But it is set in World War I, and it's told from the horse's point of view, which sounded really weird to me when we started it. But it was so good. If you're like me, and I think most of us, World War II was World War I was kind of a thing you didn't really do much of in school. Somehow we kind of just jumped from like 1800s, briefly talked about that roaring 20s, and then jumped right into the Great Depression and World War II. So when we started studying World War I really fell in love with the war. I mean, that sounds weird. I really enjoyed studying it. And this was a great addition. I learned a lot about, I didn't even know that horses were used in World War I. I didn't know. So it's just good. Obviously, it's a fiction book, but there's some accuracy as far as like that we used them and some of the details of like the battles and that kind of stuff. So, great addition, Warhorse. Next one is All of a Kind Family. This one, you're not going to learn history from it, but it's based on a Jewish family in New York City, Brooklyn maybe, set in the early 1900s. So like I said, you're not like learning any about historical events or anything like that, but it's a beautiful series. I think there are 5 in it. The family is lovely. This writing is lovely. We did these as a mix of read-alouds and audiobooks. It's just a beautiful story of this family and their adventures and kind of day-to-day life. It talks a bit about religion. It doesn't really go into it, but there's mentions of it. I just think it'd be a great add-on for that time period. Next one, Candy Bomber. This one is a nonfiction book, and it talks about, so after World War II, again, this was something that I learned that I didn't know before we studied this time period, because we did World War II and then we would jump to the 50s and then school year was over. But so after World War II, when Berlin blockade was going on and they weren't getting food, and the U.S. would do these food drops, their pilots, some of them would drop candy for the kids. And so this book was just, like I said, it's nonfiction. It's not written like a novel, not that kind of a written, but it's just really good. It is so good, and just kind of a heartwarming story that after the heaviness of World War II was just a fun book to end the series, or to end that unit on. And then 2 other World War II that are not so fun. So one of them was called, or not so lighthearted, one of them was called Code Talker. And this one is based on the Navajo Native Americans who were called in for code, because of their language for the code breaking. Their language could be broken easily. And so it tells the story of a soldier and his journey into it and into the military and then his experiences. It's really well done. My boys have listened to this multiple times since we did it. It was just an interesting story. Again, not something I ever really learned. I knew of it, but I didn't really know it. All of these titles I didn't mention will be down below. Next one, Plot to Kill Hitler. So this story is based on Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who, if you're a Christian, you've probably heard of him. If you're not, maybe not. I never did until just the last decade or so. He was involved with a Lutheran church, and there was a plot to kill Hitler that I didn't know about. Again, not one of those highlights of World War II that I would get in school. This book is heavy, and it obviously talks about death and assassination and all of that. So if you have sensitive kids, this may not be a great choice for you. You might want to do some pre-reading of it, that kind of thing. I think it was really well done. My boys didn't have any problems with it. They were on the younger side, but they're not very sensitive in that way. So it was really good. We all enjoyed it. I've got 3 kids, if you don't know. I don't think I mentioned that. And they were, I think, like 12, 8, and 6 when we did that book, somewhere around there. So now a few books for studying 20th century outside of the US. One is called The Ties That Bind, Ties That Break. This is set in early 1900s in China and tells a story of a girl who, at that time period, they would do the foot binding. One of her parents wanted her to bind her feet and the other did not. So it just kind of tells her story and the struggles and the what was going on at that time period as they were. It was just kind of as that was becoming less of a thing. So that one my daughter did as an audiobook and she really enjoyed it. I didn't listen to all of it, but I did listen to parts. It was really good. I liked it. And she really liked it. Facing the Lions. This one is about a Kenyan boy who was part of the Maasai tribe. And so it tells the story of what it was like to live on the savannah in Kenya as a tribesman who would wander and all that. Just a really good, I don't want to say wholesome, but a great look into someone else's life, a life completely different than anything I can even imagine. Along with that one would be A Long Walk to Water. This is a more recent book, and I think it was set, I want to say it was just set in like the end of the 1900s. To go along with that one would be, not written down, but The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, about a boy in Africa who got a windmill added to his village. Next one, Red Scarf Girl. This is set in the 1960s in China, right before the Cultural Revolution with Mao Zedong. So it'll go in kind of some heavy topics with communism and the killings and all of that was happening at that time. Again, China is one of those topics that, through homeschooling, I realized how much I don't know about the world and about history. I didn't really learn much about the Cultural Revolution. And just kind of a good starter topic on all of that. And the last one would be Going Over. This is set in East Berlin, West Berlin in 1980s. And this one's definitely going to be more of one that I would say is like a young teen level. But the girlfriend lives in West Berlin, boyfriend lives in East Berlin, and tells the story about whether he's going to try to escape over to West Berlin so they can. It's not a love story, but kind of the point was that they could be together, type of thing. And it's hard for my kids, at least, have had a really hard time understanding, like, really what the Berlin Wall did and what it symbolized to those of us in the West and on the other side. And I just think it was really interesting, since it was part of my childhood and my teenagehood. It's been interesting to try to explain it to the kids. But going over is just kind of a great starter topic on the Berlin Wall. So those are 10 books that you might want to add to your studies for the 20th century. And I will see you in the next video.